All right, today, Mitchell Portland's podcast, and we're back, each and every day. We love to have important conversations, dialogue, dating and relationships. I'm here with an expert, a legend, Neda Farr. Welcome to the Mitchell Portland's podcast. How are you doing?
Good. It's so good to be here. I'm very excited to dive into everything relationship and astrology oriented.
It's gonna be spicy. I feel like we're gonna have some spice here. I like to just go right directly into the conversations, jump right in. We don't do any intros here. Let's talk about navigating the complexities right now, currently in the dating market, when it comes down to situationships and your experience and what you've been seeing and things like that.
I think the reason why situationships have become so prevalent is because a lot of people haven't really become in tune with themselves because of so much noise on social media that they kind of get lost with their intention. They kind of don't know what they want when it comes to dating. So they take whatever they can get because it feels rare to actually have a true connection with so much social media connection going on at the same time.
So when you say the social media is a distraction, let's speak to some specifics. Is it just the endless doom scrolling? Is it the dating apps that's adding some negativity to finding that right person? What would it be exactly?
I think your true voice and intentions get lost through social media because when you have so many options, you are constantly learning about different kinds of dating, different types of relationships. And so when you're on the apps and when you're on Instagram, for example, you just get bombarded with so many different options that your true purpose kind of gets lost. You're like, oh, that looks cool. That also looks cool. You stop thinking about yourself and what you actually want.
So speak from your point of view. How does astrology start intertwining into dating and relationships and things like that?
I think I didn't realize just how lost I was in dating and in my relationships until I took a deep dive on my astrology because I was kind of focused on everybody else and like seeing what they wanted. And I stopped thinking about myself entirely, like when it came to dating, until I looked at my zodiac chart and it gave an exact roadmap of like the exact events of when I would be fulfilled. And a lot of my personality traits that I completely neglected because I was immature and I wasn't in my mature state through astrology explaining like when you go through this event then you become mature. So I just felt really lost in myself until I had an exact roadmap through astrology of who I really am.
Okay, I love that. So, because I feel like the audience, and you know how they listen, they're watching things like that. They get into these mindsets, and you hear in dating. I've been on dates where it's like, let's not talk about astrology,
Yeah.
zodiacness, and all this is woo woo. They don't believe in it for whatever weird reason. I'm a Pisces. I get it. For me, I feel like it's
Hmm.
the best sign of all time. You know what I mean? Maybe we can have a debate there. We can probably have a
Yeah.
debate there. But speak to why so many folks have a negative connotation when it comes down to astrology and understanding the true meaning of it.
I do think it's kind of hard because like astrology is something that doesn't have a scientific background, and I think like a lot of male, audiences want to have specific evidence as seen through so many other things. What they don't know is that astrology does have a very scientific background in comparison to a lot of other spiritual practices. I think there isn't a certain like that explains everything. It's very much up to interpretation a lot of the time. But when it comes to the actual transits and astrological placements in the sky and history, it's like very, very historically accurate. So I think a lot of I don't know why it's not talked about more, like the actual mathematics behind it, but that's kind of carry takeaway for men is that it's kind of a woman thing to latch on to that's more spiritual and not proven.
Okay, I like that. So give us a date. Like, how do you break down astrology? Like in your videos and your talking pieces and things like that, because you have a pretty big presence on TikTok, Instagram, starting to build a YouTube, things like that. But speak about how you connect with your audience to really understand the astrology.
I'm not gonna lie, like I have to connect astrology to things and struggles that a lot of people are going through in their adolescence because if I talk about like the mathematics and stuff and say this is happening because of the degrees in the sky currently, like a lot of people don't have that knowledge, so I have to connect it to something that they are familiar with. And a lot of the times that is dating and love and relationships because everything that happens in astrology is connected to your love life and is affecting your love life in some capacity. So I always go with the topic of relationships and love because I think that's the a lot of my audience is always thinking about that. So it's very easy for them to connect like I have been having these emotions and because Netta is saying this transit is the cause, like that makes a lot of sense for me.
Okay. So there's a thing that's happening soon. It's like Mercury Retrograde, kind of rhymes with Gatorade, just to add some humor to it and whatnot. Let's unpack all that because that's new to me. I've heard this meaning, I've heard this saying, and things like that. Let's really deep dive into that and what we can discover there.
So, Mercury is the planet of communication. And when it goes into retrograde, a lot of past themes of communication come back into the picture. A lot of things that you've already dealt with come back into the picture, including a lot of miscommunication. So, it's very common for tech mishaps. A lot of things go wrong when it comes to like communicating with other people online. But the most common experience you have during Mercury retrograde is your ex reaching out or you really feeling the need to talk to your ex because that past communication comes back into the forefront and it makes you really want to engage in that.
Okay, so speaking back to the exes, that's wild. Because listen, my exes, they can't reach back out. We're good there. Like, you know what I mean. What's done is now done. The
Hmm.
seasoning is now spoilt. You know what I mean, and things
Exactly.
like that. When folks hear about their ex reaching back out, would you say, from your point of view, it's good to open up those lines of communication based off if it was like a mutual break, or should they just kind of keep it just buried and things like that?
I think Mercury retrograde is a really good time to talk to your ex because you talk about all of the things that were left unsaid from the ending of it. Like everything that is unresolved and you weren't able to get off your chest, or even that you've been wondering to get that closure. This is kind of like the perfect excuse to actually get that closure. Because by the end of Mercury retrograde, if you haven't spoken to them, then that door is closed. Like, very much so, it's not going to open again. So, if your Mercury or if your ex doesn't reach out during Mercury retrograde, it kind of means that there's no unfinished business and it's just done.
I try to keep it that way, finished. I'm not trying to reopen and rekindle any of that stuff. Because this is the thing with dating, right? It's like, how do I want to go? Do I want to get controversial here? Maybe I might. We'll
Just a
see.
little bit.
Just a teeny bit, right? You got to add some spice to this. I feel like what I've learned is that when in dating, we have people that we've met. And when we meet these said people, what tends to happen is you go your separate ways. Maybe they don't support you in a certain endeavor. Maybe you've just outgrown each other. You know, there's different types of healing, coaching, things like that, different jobs, change of location. And what I think happens is that, and I'm speaking from a man point of view, you have to always go through continuous journey of evolution. And some of us don't. We get comfortable, right? And when we get comfortable, what tends to happen is we lose sight and identity of each other. And that's where I think you'll see a lot of these breakups start happening because folks are still projecting from other relationships and they try to bring it in. When I fully understand now is that we're not fully healed from a lot of like the things that have happened to us. So we still may have those emotional, physical triggers, but we have to get better, right? So speaking to astrology and everything that you know, speak to really, let's really deep dive on this, see where we can go. How do we really look through that inner parts of healing so we're not bringing those same preconceived notions into a new relationship?
This is a really great question because astrology kind of answers like the different aspects of your life that really need healing and attention. So there are 12 houses in astrology, and each house relates to a different area of your life. And every single astrological transit that comes up is related to one of those 12 houses. So you're going to be affected in one of those 12 areas of your life, no matter what day it is, no matter what transit it is. it is trying to heal one aspect of your life. And it's kind of up to you to find that strength and kind of know yourself to face those trials head on. Because if you kind of don't know what's going on, if you don't know yourself, if you don't know your triggers, then it is very difficult to move past those trials. And then they're just going to come back again once that transit comes back. It's going to test that one aspect of your life again and again until it's finally healed. So it takes a long time for people to heal in all 12 aspects of their chart. So I think that's one thing I really love teaching people through Starcrossed is you need to recognize these 12 houses and see what trials are coming ahead for you so you can be kind of prepared and know that hard things are going to come into that one aspect of your life.
I love that you say that because if you don't work on yourself, how are you going to get better? Right. And I think
Exactly.
that's the number one thing. Like we all want to be better in certain areas of our life. That could be eating, health, success in finances, living conditions, things like that. You know, I was in an Uber Toronto after an event, and one of my guys goes, "All the money in the world, right? What vehicle would you drive?" I said, "Murcielago." You know what I mean? Things like that. And it's like, yeah, like I get it. We all want better for ourselves, but we got to figure out ways to extrapolate what it is we're trying to do. And
Hmm.
I'm like over the whole limiting beliefs. And I think that as you, and you probably get this a lot, as you're going through your healing process and you reach like that maximum potential and you're single, it's going to be hard for you to navigate in this dating world because a
Hmm.
lot of folks may not see eye to eye. They get intimidated by maybe how you speak, how you look. You know, they see us as content creators, things like that. They may have a time and a place where they're like, they may not understand themselves. So it's like, well, how am I going to get to understand Neda or Rory or anyone in this space if you're not familiarizing yourself with content creation and the TikTokers of the world and the influencers of the world? So there's always going to be like that limiting belief is like, well, could that person switch me out at any given time as they're growing on their journey? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think when it comes to like TikTokers and prejudging like content creators, I think the biggest thing for us is like who we date is not going to see us as TikTokers and like content creators. They're going to see us as really entrepreneurial and like very business minded people because it's like a full time job, to content create. And you know that more than anyone. So we shouldn't be ever going and saying yes to a date with someone that's like, oh, you just make videos, that's what you do. It's like, no, there's so much more business behind this and so much more intention that it's like that person is never going to be good to date, I think.
Would you think that creators or entrepreneurs should all date each other? Kind of like we should stay within that same realm, people that understand the mission. Because I think like someone that works a 9 to 5, and I can speak from this point of view, I still work a 9 to 5. But as I'm building this podcast, it's going to be the transition to get me out the 9 to 5 to then be full out creator, doing the things that you want to do. And I don't think folks know that the on and off switch when it comes with that. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So they think, oh, you just shoot videos, you speak in TikTok, so you do 10, 15-second videos, you do 45 to an hour podcast, and then, well, what's the end game here? So folks get kind of confused. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think it's very much a wiring of the brain. Like, this is a little controversial of me to say, but I definitely think you are either born with that entrepreneurial drive or like you very much are happy with the 9 to 5 lifestyle. And that's just two completely different worlds and two completely different mindsets that you can't really teach someone that is very happy and fulfilled with the 9 to 5 lifestyle to embrace the entrepreneurial mindset that's like more hours than that. And like it's constantly on your mind. You never have like an off switch when it comes to that. So I think it is a little harder to date within those two mindsets. Just from my experience, like I didn't have that entrepreneurial mindset triggered until I met someone with that same entrepreneur headspace. So beyond astrology, I think those little nuances make all the difference when it comes to dating. It's like you don't really know what you want until you find it.
Love that you say that. I love that you say that. Dating is such a. I hear guys say that dating is rigged. They're like, the selection crop out there is playing one to many.
Hmm.
I'm like, well, if you're playing one to many, then what do you think you're gonna get? You know what I mean? And I think
Yeah.
it's because we fear being alone is why
Hmm.
we probably play the one to many. Me
Yeah.
personally, I don't got time for that. There's too much things going on. I got to play one to many with podcasts and guests and
Right.
scheduling and editing and doing all this other stuff and creating networks and going to networking events. So that's my one to many. And a lot of people don't believe that. They're like, well, you're lying. You got people in your DM and all this. No, I know some content creator friends, trust me. And I see some of them where I've seen their DMs, and a lot of the times it's filled with like other folks wanting to network, wanting to collaborate. We're not necessarily out here getting the solicitation from men or women of like, yo, let's go on a date. Let's do this. Let's do that. We have to be so tight knit and structured into what it is we're doing because we can't be distracted. And I always say is you can't be devoted and then be distracted. And I think so many times now, not to call out one specific group, but I think with men and women, the reason why you're finding your dating complexities so hard is because you're playing the one to many. You're playing a volume game like you're shooting. It's like Steph Curry. You shoot 100 shots to make 70. But you can't consistently do that with dating. I think you got to, maybe you're in the talking stages, maybe there's a couple people you're talking to, cool. But once you start seeing things kind of, the momentum starting to go, that's when you're kind of like, okay, maybe this is a good idea. Maybe I should go with this person, and then see where it goes and things like that.
I think what you're saying is so interesting because, like, the mindset of so many men when it comes to dating is like that limiting mindset, but it goes so much further than that. Where this is something I'm trying to teach my audience too is like it's more about you and your intention because your intention is going to project onto your reality when it comes to dating. Because if you are like, it's too limiting to be on the dating apps, like it's like shooting into a barrel, like you're going to settle for whatever you can get. And it should be way more expanded than that, where you should just be off of those triggers. Like, obviously you're going to be so downtrodden when you see so many people on Hinge and stuff. Like you just have to delete Hinge and just give yourself a goal of like, I'm going to just go meet up with a friend that I haven't seen in a few years and just try to get another person's experience, try to widen my horizons. And then when you kind of just get rid of all that noise, you start to remember the little things that matter to you, that have your distractions have been having you forget about. Like, and that's why I love astrology so much, is because it's just written out for you those traits in dating that you totally forgot that you needed to be fulfilled in a relationship. Um, that's one thing I really wanted to do on Starcrossed, was have the exact traits that you need to look for so you can actually date with intention instead of just being on the apps and settling for the first person that you have a decent conversation with online.
Love that. Do you feel like we're probably better prone to remove the dating apps? And I understand like Instagram within itself, it's its own dating app. It feels like now too. It's like
Yeah,
it's your human highlight film for resume. So for any man or woman. But then you have some folks that are like, yo, I'm on a yacht today. I'm on a jet tomorrow. I'm in a Lamborghini next week. Like, I get it. A lot of that stuff can be paid and bought for. But it's kind of like, let's really understand who we are as people. You know what I mean? And I feel like if you see something like one of my big content creator friends, he was on Big Brother, right? And when he came out of the house, Big Brother Canada, we had a podcast conversation. We talked. And I looked at the girl that he's with and he's dating. And it was so interesting of how they met. And it was through the DM because she posted something on the DM he didn't have no prior knowledge to of it was like a song by J. Cole, Love Yours. And he posted the same song the same day. And then when he was going through her story, he's like, wait, what the heck happened here? And that's how they ended up becoming one long distance relationship until now they both live in Toronto. Shout outs to them. So I think what's happening now is a lot of folks don't want to take that chance. A lot of men don't want to knock on the door because they think if I go in this girl's DM and I say this to her, she may look at me and be like, I'm just another guy. A lot of women don't want to shoot their shot because they want to be pursued. But then it's like, I get you want to be pursued, but at sometimes you got to put the feelers out there. I think both parties got to put the feelers out there in 2025. That makes sense?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think, when it comes to there's two different aspects of it. It's like if you want to date casually, then you should definitely be doing that. Like you should definitely be reaching out to as many people through Instagram that you think would hit it off with as possible because it's so good to get as much like experience as possible to see what you like and what you don't like. But when it comes to like long-term relationships, I think your friend on Big Brother, that's like so rare. It's just on Instagram, I feel like a lot of people have their own agenda and it's very hard to find like-minded people through social media in general. So if you're trying to date long term, I think it's so much better to go in person and meet other people that are trying to put themselves out there in person because it's so much more of a commitment rather than like shooting off a DM is like the most low-hanging fruit you could do.
I know what I'm doing here. Trust me. I know exactly what I'm doing here. Trust me. I'm just playing off of the things that I see out there sometimes, you hear about and whatnot.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's like, where do you go? You know what I mean? But I've always said to folks,
Yeah.
is like, go into places of networks. Like, you see me wearing the hat coffee party. And prior to this conversation, there's a conversation that I had with one of the five guys that do this. And he said the exact same thing. It's like, it's a place where you can network. You can meet maybe a potential partner, but it's what you're going there for. If you're going there to have fun, let things just naturally come up. Let it just illuminate things like that. You know what I mean? But making sure there's a commonality interest that's there. And I feel like now that's where dating is kind of gone. There's no interest. We're not finding out who and what people like. And how can we build off of that? And how can we take, what's the word I'm looking for? How can we acknowledge what that person's into? Like their movies. Are they a gamer? Are they a TikToker, influencer, podcaster? Do they like sports? What's their favorite TV show? What like things? There's so many things, but we're not wanting to extrapolate any of that information. We just want to go in just baseline, base level, because that's what we're used to. So let's speak to that because I really want to deep dive into that, and then we're going to get into the app and all that other good stuff that
Yeah.
you're part of and all that.
I think honestly, when it comes to meeting people for the first time and you are going in with the intention of like, oh, I think they're cute, I want to talk to them, it's hard because you either are talking to them and trying to find parts of yourself that are relatable to them. You're like, oh, okay, you're into ninja movies. Like, I did taekwondo like a little bit when I was younger, and you're trying to kind of mold yourself to please the other person. I wouldn't say please, but like find common ground with the other person because you really think they're attractive and you want to connect with them. And that's like taking away from yourself and like what you really want. And I think a lot of the dynamics are like one person wants to talk more about themselves and the other person is listening and wants to find parts of themselves that fits that other person. So that's just really hard because you're playing that game at the same time of trying to find someone that you actually click with, and everything just gets lost, and you don't even know who you are anymore dating this person. That's something I find to be the case a lot of the time.
No, and you're speaking a lot of truth there because someone that's a podcaster like myself, I'm pretty vast in a lot of departments. So I can basically sit kind of reserve in a way and play off of like what your interest is. And if it's something I'm not sure about, that's when you ask questions down the road. But you lead up to it, right? The real form of breadcrumbing is that you leave a trail and you breadcrumb, not breadcrumb and then take everything away and then bring it back into the person's life, but leave the trail. You know what I mean? Okay, so they like maybe like sci-fi movies. I may not be the biggest sci-fi person, but take an interest to that. So, what are your top 5 sci-fi movies? And then build into it. And then maybe have that open perspective of like, you know what, let me sit there and at least find a commonality. Let's watch Aliens, let's watch Star Wars, maybe Star Trek, and figure it out that way and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's a way better way to do it. Like, you have a much better mindset than a lot of people because they try to kind of fight the person of like, oh no, I'm into that more than you. But you're actually saying, like, I want to do this with you and learn more about it. And you're not losing yourself in that process, which I think is really admirable.
Yeah, well, for sure. It's a lot of the learning. You got to figure out, you got to date, figure out what you like, what you dislike, you know what I mean? Things like that. But if you're into like partying and drugs and, doing all that stuff, no, it's a no bueno for me. We ain't got time for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Speak to the app. Speak to the app that you're a part of. Things like that, navigation tools, all that, the startup of it. Speak to that.
It was definitely a crazy journey. I think I started content creation because I knew that I wanted to start my own business and I really wanted to make an app that I could reach way more people than content creation does because the algorithm keeps you in one area of the world, I feel like. And when you make an app, you can reach way more people. So I kind of decided that I wanted to start content creation so I never had to rely on anyone else in my business. I could do all of the organic marketing myself and wouldn't have to do any paid ads or anything. So, I just decided to start content creation. And after a year of being on TikTok, I finally reached the point where I was like, okay, I have an amazing audience. I can launch a business now and I would have that support behind me. So it took me around 3 to 4 months to build Starcrossed. And the point of Starcrossed is kind of to teach yourself about exactly who you should be looking for when it comes to dating because you really forget because of all the noise and everything that we've talked about. So I think the app goes very much into detail about every single characteristic that your perfect person has, including their sex drive, their love language, their communication style, even what they look like. And astrology even goes so far to say how you'll meet them and where that person is from, which is wild to think about, like that it gets so specific. But I really wanted to have that information accessible to everyone because a lot of people don't know how to use astrology to that huge extent when it comes to dating. So it was very, very fun to create, but there was some crazy setbacks in entrepreneurship. Like we were not allowed to go on the App Store for months, and we had to battle Apple because they simply would not allow any new astrology apps to be on the App Store. And I found that this is the same with dating apps. They restrict any new dating apps to be put on the App Store, which is why we have like Hinge and Bumblebee as huge as they are because Apple has been blocking that line of work on the App Store. So we had to go back and forth with Apple for months and finally after like 3 months of battling, they just allowed it one day. We just got a really great moderator that finally allowed the app on the App Store, and it's been out for 6 months now.
Okay, I love that. There's a lot. There's a lot you went into there. There's a
Yeah.
lot you went into because you're saying that you can find out a person's sex drive and you can find out all this
hmm
other stuff. Okay, so you just what? You just download the app and then you and your person figure out like the kit and caboodle of like how we match. Is that what it is? Kind of explain a little bit more.
It's you can tap phones with any of your friends, or you can text a link, and then with every person you add on the app, it unlocks a piece of your soulmate's zodiac chart, how you'll meet, and where they're from. So the reason I did this is because I wanted you to add as many friends as possible on the app so you could see your compatibility with them and see what traits match with your friends to kind of give you more insight of like, your friend has this zodiac trait, and that's the exact same one as the love of your life. So you should really focus on your friend having that and look for that in other people, if that makes sense.
Ooh, this is getting good now. Okay, okay. No, because you know what? So I have a life coaching background, right? So when it comes down to not to take away from the astrology conversation, but for me, knowing and understanding the perspective of how folks operate has always been a thing. So when I look at this now, I'm like, how am I going to incorporate this in my day-to-day life? Right? To where it's like understanding the commonalities. Look, I know one of my boys is probably going to be all over this right now. I'm going to make sure. I'm going to definitely mention it to him and stuff like that. We're going to obviously put the download link and all that in that because I'm curious on this. I really want to deep dive because I'm like, do I have really the right people around me? Sometimes,
Right. No, yeah.
you ask yourself that question because it's like, I'll be honest. I went through a mass exodus. I changed my number a month and a half ago. Just
Dang.
changed my number around because I was like, you know what? Where I'm going right now, it's not like I'm running away from anybody, but I'm like, I just can't be bothered. The right people are gonna really find out and reach out to me and we're going to talk and we're going to connect. We're going to meet up and we're going to do all these other things. But not everybody's on that page. They're not on that wavelength. You know what I mean?
No, I totally agree. I think it's so hard when you have so many friendships around you that you like are very used to. You don't realize that you are growing apart from people and you just don't have that common ground with certain friends anymore. But it's so hard to like face that fact and detach. So that was one thing I was like, it would be really cool if we put these specific reasons we love someone and the reasons that we don't work with a friendship just like all out on one app so you can really see like maybe it is time to disconnect from this person or like what traits do they have that I should be looking for in other friends and even romantic partners.
And I think what you're speaking to is the level of maturity as well. All right. A lot of folks that are around us, a lot of men, a lot of women are not mature. They don't
Hmm.
have the emotional awareness and intelligence to really be able to hang into the coliseum, I like to say. So what tends
Yeah.
to happen here is a lot of folks will always project that limiting belief, the fixed mindset. There's no growth opportunity that's there. And I feel like like I said, I've been on dates and, I've talked to many people on the podcast, dating and relationships. Some folks have told me, why don't you just stay in the pocket? I'm like, I could if I really wanted to, but it's like, for me, it's just like I willy nilly it. You know what I mean? I rather talk about other things than just be in dating and relationships. And one of the commonality things that I see from a lot of women is they'll be like, oh, you're intelligent, you're intimidating, and all these different things. And then I realize when I hear these words, I'm like, but who is it you've been speaking to in your past life? You get what I mean? Because you think
Yeah.
that you'd be hanging around with people that they don't have to necessarily have a gift for gab like we do, but like at least be have an awareness of themselves. And I think when you have someone that has awareness of yourself, you should gravitate to that, not projecting the same limiting beliefs in the fixed mindset. And I'm just like, okay, this is weird. And that's the reason why now it's like when it comes to dating, you're just kind of like, why am I even bothering? Because you got to find someone that's going to match your speed. Are we what lane on the freeway are we in, or the highway? Are we in the fast lane? Are we in the middle lane? Are we in cruise control like a Tesla? We're just gonna just cruise it because we're gonna cruise control, but I'm going like a little bit quicker than you. Then we got to figure it out. You know what I mean?
That's why it's so easy to settle because you're like, I went through all of this stuff to get to this point, and this is like what I'm ending up with. Like, this is the best that I'm gonna get after all of the hard work that I've put into networking and like expanding my social circles just to meet this one person. And it's like so easy to settle and be like, I give up. I'm just gonna end up with this person. But that's why you have to be like, no, we have to get into other circles and expand even more because like when we probably met that person we were a certain version of ourselves and now we're like in a higher frequency, so we have to go and find that type of person, which is really hard on social media because you're like, oh, I think that they're that type of person and it's completely fake and like fabricated. So that's another hard part, is just finding people in real life to talk with without completely going out of your way. But I guess we just have to go out of our way to do it.
You strike me as a person that's very dialed in, very intentional. And when you're dialed in and you're in intention and you're coming from and operating from a place of intention, a lot of folks are not going to be able to understand you, right? They won't. I've gotten to conversations where I've met people out and about, past life, and they just look at you like you have like 18 different heads. Like it feels like it's an episode of Game of Thrones. And I'm like, I'm not like a monster. But they're like, how you been? And then they're like starstruck. And they're like, we see you doing so good. And I'm like, okay, let's forget about that. Let's really
Yeah.
like talk about like what's been going on in life. And I think folks put you into this place, into this life of like, we're doing cool things on social media. I get that. But we're not doing this for the ego stroking. We're doing this for the awareness piece. We're doing this to help better every man and every woman that's growing up, getting into whatever they want to do, because we all want to be better in our life. Like going back to the common conversation of what we're saying, being better. And it's like, I don't know if it's just some folks have this insecurity about self where when they see someone that's doing a little bit better, it's like they instantly put them into this pedestal. And it's not about being on a pedestal. It's about just, let's really just be better with each other. You know what I mean? Ask me anything. You can talk to me about the podcast. You can talk to me about whatever, sports, whatever, politics, some religion. We can have those conversations. but I don't really want to talk about, yo, man, you're doing so amazing. Seen this get this gets that gets. I'm like, okay, they're just people like me. We all eat and breathe and sleep. We got cool things. We're doing life. You know what I mean? And things like that.
It's wild. Like, genuinely, they don't understand that there's such a bigger reason for doing these things than clout, because that's what they would do it for. They would do it for their own reason. So they're just starstruck that you're doing it. And it's like, the reason I'm doing it is because I have way better intentions than like just doing it for clout or like ego. Like, speaking of Mercury retrograde, that's something a lot of people are going to realize soon because it is in the zodiac sign of ego. So a lot of people's egos are going to be slapped because of Mercury retrograde tomorrow.
She said their egos are going to get slapped. Is that a front hand or is that a backhand? Let's talk about it.
I think it's gonna be really spicy for sure. It's in the sign of Leo, which is very much hitting your dating life very aggressively because Leo is the sign of grand romantic gestures and ego. So if you reach out to your ex, like, you might get slapped and humbled because of it. So something spicy is gonna happen, but it's gonna be in one of those two areas of like grand romance or your ego.
Okay. So what can you tell me about Pisces? I'm curious.
Do you know like your moon sign or rising sign?
What's the moon again? I
It's your
believe
emotional world.
it's Taurus and then there's Libra.
Okay.
Yeah.
So hopefully your Libra rising, Taurus moon, Pisces. It's a
Yeah.
very balanced chart.
Well, I knew that. I've been knowing that. I've been saying it. Do you know what's so wild before you go into this? Because I really want to hear what you got to say. I've always spoke to myself saying, there's a balance system. There's Libra somewhere there. Because I'm driven, but you can also be stubborn.
Hmm.
And knowing that when you can operate off that, like, you got to have that contrarianness when you're doing the podcast too. Like, I
Yeah.
can't weigh too heavy, and that what makes me probably pretty effective in this space when
Hmm.
I have certain conversations and be able to know to pinpoint off of everything. So I knew that I always had like some sort of balance system. I'm like, why was I never a Libra? You know what I mean? But continue on. Yeah.
No, but that's why it's so cool that you're a Taurus moon because you're not going to let anyone tell you how to feel. Like, you're not going to let a lot of things shake your emotional foundation, which is hard. But that's why I feel like you can go and date anyone, but you're not gonna let them fully go into your circle because you're like, this is not the emotions that I should be getting from this,
Not
you
you
know?
reading me right now. Not you reading me. I got goosebumps here.
No, I love that you're a Pisces too, because I think that just really makes you intuitive. Like, you have low key like psychic ability when it comes to things and people. So you're not gonna take any shit from anyone, which is awesome.
And when you put that with just the awareness,
Hmm.
it's like a weapon of mass destruction walking around, right? Because there's sometimes like folks will be in group settings, people like, you're not saying anything because I'm just observing. I'm just taking
Yeah.
everything in. Sometimes that's what you got to do. You take everything in. You feel. If you look at what Pisces do in the ocean or the sea, fish are always around big herds of each with,
Hmm.
but people don't notice that. They think, oh, it's you're a whale or you're a shark. No, no, no. Fishes in the sea, in the ocean. Look at how they just move. They move in sync. You get what I mean?
Yeah,
So it's like
moving in
flow.
silence.
You know what I mean? We
Yeah.
flow. We flow like water, like Bruce Lee would say. Flow like water. You get what I mean? Muhammad Ali
Yeah.
would say the exact same thing. It's like sting like a beast, motion like a butterfly. I butchered that. So all the Muhammad Ali people that listen to the podcast, I'm like, yo, Rory, really? But it's just how it is. You know what I mean?
So did you kind of do a deep dive on your chart before you started dating with intention, or have you not really like unpacked
Jesus
that yet?
Christ. Here we go. You want intel. So, you know what? I'm all about truth. I feel like this journey that I've been on now would have been midway point of 2019. And then there was some little things that happened in 2020 along with the pandemic where you meet people that were not maybe on the same alignment. And what I realized is that I needed to do more work and more reading and a lot of being a self starter I had to go get that certification through Dr. Eric Thomas, E.T. the hip hop preacher, big on Instagram, things like that. Always has a baseball cap, always talks positive things, right? And with that led me to more and more development within self and the human psyche. So now it's like, I know what I want in dating. I know what I want in relationships. But the thing is, I'm not going to run after the person, right? And I know that's going to be triggering to, there's some people I know listening to this right now. It's fine. Let them listen. And I think folks want this let's run after each other. I can't, because it becomes too gamey. And when you have to run and you have to prove, I don't have nothing to prove to nobody. You should be able to look at me, know who I am, watch how I speak, how I show up. I'm pretty sure of what it is I'm doing and where I'm going. I'm in a building stage. I'm in a growth stage. We should all be in a growth stage. I don't even care if you're 50, 60 years old. 70 years old, that's when you're chilling on a villa, doing whatever you want to do, right? But you always have to be in a growth position in life. I'm not going to compromise this brand, the podcast, because I did it back in 2010 when it was doing the whole blog situation. And that's going deep in some other stuff that's going on, but we don't want to take away from the conversation. So my self-awareness button has always been there, but there was sometimes I had to hit that panic button, right? I had to go through the emotional resets. I had to go through the heartbreak. And you know what? In the heartbreak, extrapolated a lot of information from myself to say is, okay, this is what you need to do, right? That's why I feel like now when you get into dating and relationships and you're actually in something like that's fluid and foundation based, y'all are never going to fight and scream at each other. There should never be that. We can have a disagreement. Maybe we're watching a sports game and you're going to be just talking all this mess in my ears. I'm probably going to ignore you because I'm going to be like, the game's not over. The zero is not hit the clock. So why are you talking? But we can have some banter. I'm all about the banter, but I don't feel like there should ever be a fight or anything like that. You know what I mean? And it's just like even how people break up now. People don't even know how to break up properly. You know what I mean? I'm the type of person, I'm just say, listen, when we're done, we're done. It's just it. There's no past go. I don't want to hear your rebuttal. I don't want to hear what you got to say because we're done. I've reached my maximum. Like, I'm filled. I can't with you no more because you don't want to work on yourself. And that's fine. I think what the sexiest thing, and I want you to go on to this, I think the sexiest thing, what I want any man and woman to do is know yourself. And when you show up with intention and you have that ability about you to really tap in and dive in what it is you're wanting to do it to the best of your ability, but show that vulnerability as well. Because it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to simply sit here and connect with your woman or whatever your sexual orientation is. Because for me, vulnerability is all about listening and then speaking when you need to. But back to you, Neda.
I think the hardest pill to swallow for most people and why they get stuck in relationships that are not meant for them is because when you finally meet that person and you're like, okay, I'm so excited, I'm so happy, I can finally relax. I think that's not true. You should always be growing together and you should be learning so much from the other person where it's not relaxing. It's like you guys are doing a lot of growth together and hitting a whole new life path together where they're on their own path and you're on your own path and you want to find that growth to make a way bigger life path together. So it's not relaxing. It's actually go time when you do meet that other person. And that's something a lot of people don't want to hear. You know, they don't want to do any more work. They don't want to do any work on themselves. Like they just want to meet their person and relax, which is why people get complacent and unhappy in the long term.
No, so true. And that's the thing, it's like we have it in ourselves, right? Like dating shouldn't be this hard. Just show up. You know what I mean? I think we got to stop the cookie cutter, Tom and Jerry, Wile E. Coyote, Roadrunner BS. Back in my days of dating, you could go out, meet a girl, have a conversation. I'm not dating myself here, but I know that my old school folks that come from an old school mentality, mid 30s, I think they can understand this, where it's like, look, you met a person. If you were out and about, you met a lady. You said, hey, listen, you start having a conversation with her. Hey, I'm seeing somebody, or I'm in a relationship. You may not get that vice versa in both what's going on, because now folks are playing the one-to-many effect because I'm mad at my girlfriend right now because whatever. I'm mad at my guy because he didn't take out the trash. So I'm just going to just take in all this information from all this attention that I'm getting. And then you become nearsighted. Then
Hmm.
you lose the ability to know how to connect with the person. And I get
Yeah,
it.
definitely.
Early stages of dating, you're going to be talking to other people. I already know that going into. But as
Hmm.
you're building something of foundation and substance, and I can always spot it now. That's why I
Yeah.
just don't say anything. I'm just like, all right, cool. Let me just reserve here. I'm just gonna go on the reserve. I'm just gonna repel on my energy, and we'll see what happens. Because if you're for me, you're gonna reach out to me no matter what, and we're gonna
Hmm.
both reach out to each other. But I think from what I'm speaking from with men is this, and it's not to be contradicting. Sorry, some men want to know it's safe to reach out to you,
Hmm.
and that it's not coming from an element of cat and mouse. Show us. Men want to be shown too. Men want you to show us that, hey, like, look, it's okay to reach out to you. It's okay to reach out to us. There shouldn't be no limiting beliefs. There shouldn't be no limiting situations unless you're being distracted by some other party. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised because I didn't know that mentality of men being scared to reach out, but that definitely makes sense. I think something that's really helpful too is knowing your own communication style because everyone's communication is so different that it's like, why do I care what they think? I'm going to communicate in the way that I know I'm comfortable communicating. And if they're down for that, then that's awesome. But if they're not, then that's okay. Like I'll just cut my losses and move on and find someone that loves my communication style. So I think that's how you guys should be approaching it rather than saying like I'm scared of this. Like you should do it in the way you feel comfortable doing it instead of
Absolutely.
how the other
Absolutely.
person did, which is kind of
Absolutely.
aggressive, but like
No,
that's
and true.
true.
I think one of the biggest things, even in dating, and I listen, I take my own meal as well too. Is like ask that person what their communication style is like, but
Yeah.
even maybe expound and build on it. And I get it. I'm talking about early signs of like you're just in the talking stages. You maybe
Yeah.
been on a handful of dates. We're not saying like you're 6 months in, you're still doing the like BS. It's just it gets to a point now where it's like you reach out, you don't know if it's should I reach out to this person. Me, I'm a voice note
Hmm.
guy. Eventually, well, after a while, I'm a voice note guy. But the thing is, someone that has a podcast, you should. I think when if people really know themselves, they can already
Hmm.
pick up and understand what my love language is. It's not that hard to figure out. But I could put a quiz on to you and ask you, and you figure it out. What's my love language?
You're asking me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. I mean, words of affirmation, right?
Bang. See, unless you guessed,
No, well, I mean, I don't know your Venus sign. If I knew, then I could tell you right now.
it's words of affirmation.
Yeah.
Majority of the time, someone that's a speaker, words of
Hmm.
affirmation probably is going to be the one that comes up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we're fruitful with our words. We know how to explain things. We know how to break things down. Maybe
Yeah.
it may take a little bit longer to come out, but we figure it out. You know what I mean?
And you're the one giving that all the time. It's like, that would be nice if I could get some in return.
That's what it's about. That's why when
Yeah.
some people say physical touch, I'm like,
Mm.
is that even really a one? Shouldn't you always not want to be touched and held by your person? You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. It's
like
hard. Like, I think there's way more than the standard ones, Physical touch obviously is one of the big four, but there's way more that are like more nuanced than that.
I love that. I love that. Well, before we get out of here, I want you to
Hmm.
plug all your information again. We're going to put everything in the show notes, all that great stuff. This was a fun time, great conversation, healthy dialogue. But give us, before you get into all of that, give us 1% way we can get better in dating and relationships.
I think to approach it knowing your love language, your communication style, even your aggression style it makes such a huge difference because then you know what's the most complementary style to yours. So you can be fully prepared to just leave the ones that are not adding to your growth and to find the two styles that are perfect for yours. Just knowing those three things about yourself will just make your dating life so much easier.
I love that. I love that. And plug all your information. Where can everybody check out the app, your social media, and all that good stuff?
I am Neda the Astrologer on TikTok and Instagram, and I own the Starcrossed app on the Play Store and App Store.
Love that. Love that. We gotta do this again. Maybe in
Yeah,
person. Let's get it in person. Let's get in studio. I would love to put you with other content creators that talk about dating and relationships that could maybe really spring some good, healthy dialogue in studio. I think it would be wild, to be
yeah,
honest.
that would be
You know what I
awesome.
mean? For sure, for
All
sure.
right, where are you based?
I'm in Toronto.
Oh, really? I love
Mm.
Toronto. I need
Right?
some Tim Hortons.
Anyways, time to get podcast. Tim Hortons is crazy. I
Dude,
appreciate you. I appreciate you. All right.
thank you so much. It was so awesome speaking with you.